here's what we got. City council meeting last night had a final vote on the gas and oil policies. Now, fundamentally, I guess there were 3, potentially 4 changes to this. Originally, a well or drilling of a well, or now is this for well placement, or is this like any well activity, fracking, etc.?
Well, it's any well activity. You can't drill. The ordinance changed from a 300-foot separation from an oil well exploration or building next to an oil well to 600 foot. And basically, what we did is we just killed any future development in northeast Lubbock.
Is that any structure? I mean,
any structure except if it's in an industrial area. It's any structure within residential or commercial.
Like you couldn't put like a metal building or a workshop or something like that.
Not without a variance to the ordinance.
Oh, there you go. It's all about the money, ain't it?
Well, I will tell you, it's not about the money, and that's the easy thing for people to say because the city doesn't make money on variances. Matter of fact, this is going to cost our citizens a tremendous amount of money for us to implement and enforce this new ordinance. So it's not a money grab. It's going to be a money drain.
Now what was the reasoning behind it? Why do it at all?
There was a lot of concern from a group of people about the safety of oil wells and having them within 300 foot of homes. Unfounded, I believe, but most of their facts were based on different geological formations than we have in Lubbock. They're taking history out of Midland, Odessa, out of the Eagle Ford shale play, out of some other areas that doesn't apply to all our oil and gas industry. But quite basically, we changed our laws last night, in my opinion, out of fear and ignorance. Now, it's going to cost our citizens some money. We're going to have to potentially hire an inspector to duplicate the job the state inspector that already lives in Lubbock is doing. We will kill some future development in areas of Lubbock that I think we need to really concentrate on. But at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. Council voted on it. We passed it, even though I voted against it. I'm now part of the group that passed it.
You, Jeff, and Karen, correct. Jeff Griffith, Karen Gibson, and Glen Robertson voted against it at both readings.
Yes, and I tell you what I think is going to happen. The legislature is always looking. There's a House bill and a Senate bill already on the floor. I believe it's Senate Bill 40, and I can't remember the House bill number. But both of them are trying to clarify the delineation between state control and local control. And this is one of those areas where we need a little bit better clarity. Because I think we as a city are doing exactly what we've been accusing the state of, and that's overreaching our authority and getting into their business. Now, we don't like it when they do that to us. Matter of fact, Mayor Pro Tem Geralt and I have gone to Austin twice to appear before the Railroad Commission, asking them to please honor our right as elected officials to protect our taxpayers when it comes to rate cases. And we've argued it very well. But now, in the next breath, we're wanting to tell them, but we want to meddle in your business. And I just don't think we can have it both ways.
All right. You were talking about, or when I asked the question, if you could build like a metal building workshop or something within 300 feet, which I guess would be 299 feet and 11.5 inches. So anyway.
Actually, it's 600 feet, not 300 feet.
Well, now it's 600, right. But it's 600 feet. So you could only do that by getting a variance. And when you're talking about taxpayer dollars, et cetera, and this is a question I've thought of a couple of times. I've never pulled it out and asked it, but that goes through the ZBA, Zoning Board of Adjustment, to get the variance.
Correct.
Okay, and what they're doing is they're looking at the ordinances and policies of the municipalities to make sure that decisions are made in the best interest of the future development and well-being of the general community. So are these guys and gals that are on the ZBA, are these positions that they get paid for?
No.
Okay. But if you file for a variance with ZBA, it does cost you about 400 bones to get on the docket to make your presentation.
Correct.
Okay. And just curious, I mean, if you do have to file for a variance and all this other stuff, fact of the matter is, I'm just kind of wondering, because you said it's going to cost taxpayers more money. Relatively, filing the variances and going through those processes, et cetera, and having these extra staff and whatnot, just about how much money is it going to cost us?
Well, we won't know. It's one of those that's a moving target. I think it'll cost us a lot up front because we've now forced the oil companies that own the leases. And understand, this is a very small portion of the city of Lubbock. There is a band of about 1 mile to 1.25 miles wide that runs from the northwest portion of our city through the northeast with a little bit of southward angle to it where there's known oil reserves. It's not shale play. We're not busting rocks to get the oil. It's a known reservoir of oil that we've been harvesting for years. It's not going to affect 95% of the city of Lubbock. Nobody has to worry about an oil company coming in and building an oil well next to their home if they live in central or southwest Lubbock. There's no oil there. There's no oil leases there. There's no rights for the oil companies to come in. This is affecting an extremely small portion of Lubbock, primarily northeast Lubbock. A lot of it on land in and around the airport that we own as a city. And we're just penalizing ourselves. And like I said, taxpayers end up losing on this deal. But it's one of those that council made the decision, so we're going to move forward.
Okay, and before we hit the break, just wanted to clarify something. Okay, it appears to me that the people that are voting for this, or voted for this, in other words, to extend the distances, are those the same people that are wanting to harvest more money for the NELCDC?
I'm not going to speak for them. That's a question I'd rather you ask the people that voted in favor of this ordinance. I will tell you that I am for figuring out a way to reinvigorate Central and North and East Lubbock. And we need to do it where the city is creating an environment where we're enticing developers to come in and invest their own money to redevelop these areas and help us clean up our city, and in some cases create infill residential developments in portions of our town that are underserved. What we did last night will guarantee that a very large portion of northeast Lubbock can and never will be developed. Okay,
more on gas and oil. Coming up, have a couple of more points that we want to cover as far as like storage and the closed-loop systems that have been recommended or passed.
Right.
Also, we're going to be getting to stormwater. God willing, and the stormwater rates don't rise again. Tom Laura, Lubbock's First News, in conversation with Mayor Glen Robertson. I guess we would call you the leader of our municipality.
No, I will tell you, the leader of our municipality is our city manager. And I think we always need to remember, especially in an era where we always have a lot of politicians that like to take credit for everything and then lay blame when it goes south. But we've got tremendous leadership, the city of Lubbock, but it comes from our staff, not the city council.
Okay. On this oil and gas vote last night, passed 4-3. You, Karen, and Jeff Griffith voted against it. Going from 300 feet to a structure, can't build a structure within 600 feet.
Correct.
Of any kind of drilling activity or, I guess, oil harvesting activity. Now, the storage tanks of oil can be within 600, but not closer than 500 feet to a structure.
Correct.
Or a structure cannot be built.
Right. And there again, that is subject to variances. As you stated, though, the variance process is a little cumbersome and it's costly to the person seeking the variance. So here again, I will say I don't like the result we came to last night, but it doesn't do any good after the game is over to try to recoach it. My attitude now has to be, you know what? I'm a part of a body that voted to change the oil and gas ordinance in our city. I've got to get behind it now.
Yeah. Okay, now one other detail is the closed-loop system that is put in place for these activities.
It's the handling of fluid when you're drilling an oil well. we've been fracking oil wells in West Texas for 60 years. Now, our type of fracturing is a lot differently than what goes on in the Permian Basin. But it's how do you handle the fluids as you're doing the hydraulic fracturing?
In other words, do you
no more open pits.
No more slush pits.
Correct.
Okay. So I guess what's happening there is they have to probably use big vacuum tanks or something like that for collection.
It just drives up the cost of production is all it does.
Man, I get it. All right, we're going to be talking stormwater rates. Yikes. A lot of people upset about it, a lot of talk about it. We'll give you the opportunity next. All right. Top of the heap on city council discussion, at least as far as, the getting people's ire up, are these stormwater rates. Okay, now, way back when we had this ad hoc committee and whatnot, and, they were looking at, solving the problems of the stormwater rates and the debt that goes with putting all this stuff in. And long story short, it got voted in and got implemented, and then now it's just like, whoops, this didn't work out the way that we thought it was.
Exactly.
Or was it, whoops, we didn't know people were going to be so pissed about this?
No, I tell you exactly what happened. We've been billing people for stormwater fees since 1992. There's $140 million in debt in that department for all the money that's been spent on stormwater mitigation. It has to be paid for. The previous council to this one came in very ambitious with very.
Okay, no. When you say previous council to this one, excuse me, you're talking about the council previous to your first term.
No, I'm talking about my first term.
Okay.
When we had Todd Klein on there, that council had some very lofty goals and very ambitious thoughts on stormwater. Formed this committee, the second which have been formed to relook at it. The council, in my opinion, we didn't get down into the weeds enough with the subcommittee. We relied on the subcommittee, and they did a tremendous amount of job, but we were not involved in the getting down and really trying to figure out what are the long-term implications of changing our rate structure. It passed 5-2 to go from the old system to the system we started in January, with myself and Mayor Pro Tem Jim Gert voting against it. What we're finding is the new method has a lot of unintended consequences, and we're hurting some people that we never intended to hurt, including churches, large businesses, and the poorest of the poor.
I got a question for you. At any point in time, have you just kind of leaned over and, after the vote and after the implementation, said, "Told you so"?
You can't do that in our world. You vote your conscience. You state you state your rules. Why your reasons why you vote the way you did, and even and it's like last night. I didn't lose a vote on oil and gas. I happened to vote on the side that did not prevail. But it's not a contest, and we don't keep score. I mean, we're a system of 7 people representing this entire city. And we've got a very diverse city council that represents most every view in this community. And so I think the system works good. So when it's all over with, the thing I do not ever want to do is be joyous when something fails. Because if I get to that point, I need to get off the dais. I've been in there too long.
All right. We're going to be talking proposed solutions to this. There were some solutions that were thrown out there last night. As soon as I heard it, I was sitting there with my mom watching Channel 2, and we were just we ran the red flag up the pole. And, then checking with that and talking to some other people, quickly figured this out, that there are some things that were not lining up as far as with what some of the proposals were put out there. Stormwater's on top of the discussion heap right now. We're talking with Mayor Glen Robertson after the city council meeting last night. Now, there were some things that said that were thrown out there as far as like proposed solutions and where we think we need to go. Councilman Hernandez threw some stuff out there, but there's a couple of issues I take exception with on that. But we'll get to that in just a second. Right now, Laura, you got some questions about the stormwater rates and what we're looking at on residential stuff.
Yeah. Well, I just, doing doing homework and kind of looking around at other cities in Texas and the stormwater rates that they pay. And some people have been asking, why are our stormwater rates so high compared to other cities?
I think one reason is just that we're geographically so flat and we have so much water to move in the 3 or 4 major rain events we typically have a year. The other reason is we as a city have never tried to mitigate the cost of stormwater mitigation before we have to do the projects. And what I mean is as we develop new areas of our town, as we grow, we've got to start asking the question as a city, do we go to the people building these new large box shopping centers with 80 acres under asphalt and ask for them as part of their permitting process to help pay for the cost that the city's going to have to spend to mitigate the extra water they're going to put into our stormwater system? And we've never done that. We've always just waited till after the fact and tried to collect it. Now, that wasn't a problem when we started doing this in 1992, and the stormwater rate cost everybody in Lubbock virtually $1 a month. But here we are 23 years later, and we've got some businesses paying several $1,000s a month, and we've got some residents or residents that can very least afford it paying $30, $35 a month. So poor planning, poor management of our resources, and I think an attempt in the last 20 years to hide behind the fact that we've truly been taxing our citizens, but we're just not willing to call it a tax.
Okay, real quick, in articles that have been published and things like that, you were actually came back with a potential proposal of $10, $20, and $30 a month for residential people and having people, equal numbers of people in the bracket, and not necessarily for consistency or what would be consistent with, dimensions of their property and et cetera, but just, three different stratas so we could make the model work. And then last night at the meeting, I noticed that you went from 10, 20, and 30 to 10, 15, and 20. Correct. So that was because
I can make the numbers work. We need to shift I think we need to shift a little bit more burden to the business community, who puts a little bit more of the stormwater into the system. So the numbers will work. We could go 10, 15, and 20 on 3 equal tiers in the residential. I think we're probably going to have about 4 tiers at the commercial level. But I think we need to simplify what we overcomplicated this last time. And I think the main thing that people need to understand is that regardless of where you live, you've benefited. If you live in the city limits of Lubbock, you benefit from the fact that we've solved a lot of the flooding problems we used to have. So we've all benefited. We've just got to figure out a way that we can all share in the cost of paying down the debt.
Well, and it's hard for people to see that when we've been in a drought.
A 5-year drought, yes.
Okay, we'll go to the phones real quick. Michael, you're on. We got 60 seconds before we got to hit the break.
I can't say anything in 60 seconds. By the way, I hope you're feeling better, Glenn.
Thank you.
I wanted to say that we've built a lot of big structures right in the middle of Playa Lakes, which I like your idea of impact fees, I guess is what that's called. But one of the things we've got to look at is what we can and can't do, possibilities in this local government code, because it's subject to a couple of interpretations. And when we settle that, then we all sit around and really try to hash out some good ideas where we can transfer some of this street repair debt and even the street sweeping out of that stormwater utility. So I'm happy to work with everybody on it as much as possible. So appreciate you.
Hey, Michael, thanks for your call.
Bye.
Thanks for calling in. The morning after City Council meeting, some discussion on stormwater last night. Watch it on Channel 2. All right, Councilman Hernandez said he had a 5-point plan. Now, I only caught the first 3. I couldn't really delineate number 4 and number 5, by, Roman numeral 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Number 1, Victor says that the first things he's concerned about is handling the stormwater or getting the stormwater off of the street.
Right.
Okay. Number 2, moving it into the general fund, which would throw it into property tax. Now, one of the reasons why he actually stated it last night was because that seems what most people want to do. Then number 3 was no exemptions for anyone. Everybody has to pay their fair share. Now, here's the thing. if we move it into the general fund and throw it into property tax, churches don't pay property tax. So in other words, churches aren't paying nothing or anything.
And people that are 65 and over have a
Frozen,
cap and
yeah.
are frozen. So you're leaving that. So it's not equitable. The other thing is we have people that don't pay their property tax. And they
Imagine
know
that.
that there's no recourse on that typically until they try to sell their home. And they don't plan on selling it, and they figured out how to game the system. So if it gets moved to property tax, they personally gain. The other problem is we cannot do what he's suggesting, because to do so would be about a 20 to 22 cent rate hike in property tax. Well, we
Per
can't.
thousand.
Yes, per hundred.
Per
Or
hundred.
per hundred. Okay.
And we cannot have, the state law is not going to allow us to do that without having citywide rollback elections. And I just cannot imagine going to the citizens of Lubbock and say, hey, would you vote to raise your property tax 22, 23 cents?
Yikes.
So,
That don't look good on my taxes.
I liked, Reverend Gert had I thought, a much better idea, and that was a very small, gradual shift. There's not going to be one big fix that we can do this quick. It took us 20 years to get it this messed up. It's going to take us several years to fix it.
And then if it gets fixed with these higher rates, would the rates then be lowered somewhere down the line?
They should. If we do our job and start amortizing the debt, the rate should be lowered. But we're going to have to figure out a way to pay for stormwater mitigation as we go in the future, rather than just increasing the debt.
All right, Mayor Glenn, thanks for coming in this morning. Appreciate it.
Glad to be here.
Thank you very much for being here.
Hope you get well.
Get
Thank
another-
you, too.
Get another
Thanks.
pump of Daybreak coffee, would you?
I think I've already emptied it.